Good morning. We are the Tailgate Kings here, live and local, 1310 AM KZM, Sulphur Lake, Charles. Brought to you by the Sleep Disorder Center of Louisiana and by Mattress Factory Direct. Both companies you should be checking out right now during this time of crisis. No reason not to. All these local businesses need your money. Go check them out. Sleep Disorder Center of Louisiana and Mattress Factory Direct. All right, we've got a pretty interesting show, despite still, I guess, not much in the world of sports, but we're starting to crack through. We've got some Korean baseball, right? And
if you're up early,
Korean baseball is good.
That's what I'm saying. We'll talk about that here in a second. And we got Korean baseball, and we've got UFC tonight, and of course the NFL schedule was released earlier in the week. So there's all sorts of things to talk about. We're going to break down some Saints games here as we go through the day, as well as some other games. So here we go. Let's just get started, man. First of all, breaking news from last week. After we got off the show, I mean, we talked about it. We kind of predicted it. I think Jerry Jones might have been listening to the show. Andy Dalton to the Dallas Cowboys. I didn't think it would actually happen, but it happened. Jay, one of these crazy trade or moves, happened. What do you think, man? Because that's one, like I said, we talk about, oh man, what if Cincinnati had moved off of Burrow and taken 13 picks from Miami? That's not going to happen. Who saw Dalton actually going to the Cowboys?
Well, I think our projection was, if they tire of Dak, if they can't get a deal with him, if they franchise him, then he doesn't have a good season, or they franchise him twice and let him go, which looked like the route they were going to take, then maybe Dalton steps in there, and that makes complete sense. I think for the Cowboys, this is a great deal. If you're Jerry Jones, if you're Mike McCarthy, you go with this in a hot minute. Dalton is the ultimate backup quarterback to have right now. There's really no two questions about it. He's in that Teddy Bridgewater class, even higher than Teddy Bridgewater, actually. I mean, here's a guy who I forget the exact numbers, but I think it's there's only 6 quarterbacks who in the last decade have had, I think it's 60,000 yards, 70 wins, 200 plus TDs or something, and he's one of them.
Right.
It's like the usual suspects, like a Brady, a Manning, a Big Ben, right, a Breeze, and then you have Andy Dalton. Doesn't make any sense. So a great move for them. I'm not sure. I guess the market, look, Cam Newton can't even get a job. So the market's a little bit threadbare out there. There's not many jobs to go around at quarterback. A tough call. I mean, it might be the wrong move, but I had been tempted to go be a starter somewhere instead of a backup. So I think a great move for Dallas. I'm not sure about the move for Dalton.
Oh, okay. All right. So you've got him. You got Dak still with this job regardless, right now. I mean, I guess if Dak doesn't sign or something happens, that's different. But you've got Dak keeping the starting job right now, Jay?
Yeah, I think Dak keeps the starting job. I think what this does more than anything else is it gives Jerry and company a lot of leverage. If Dak actually wants to be a Cowboy for life, now he's going to be paying a portion of Andy Dalton's salary.
All right. Casey, what about you, man? I mean, look, you've got a similar kind of situation with your Green Bay Packers. Not, exactly, but you've got a backup all of a sudden, that you weren't expecting with a returning starter. So what do you think about Dalton here with the Cowboys, Case?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I might be with Jay, and if I was Andy Dalton, I would probably have gone to a place where I could take a starting gig. But at the same time, if maybe you feel like your value isn't as high and you don't feel like your contract could be as big as you wanted it to be this year, then maybe going to Dallas is a smart move. Go there. And if something happens and Dak doesn't play up to the expectations, or if you somehow gets hurt and you end up taking that starting role, then maybe next season you can ask for more money. And then let's say you don't play and you do sit behind Dak and you're very limited in your play. Now you're healthy. You've taken a whole year after getting beat up by that terrible offensive line in Cincinnati, and you take a year to recover, relax, get in better shape, and get ready for a payday next year. So I don't know. I'm up in the air. I might have gone and been a starter somewhere, but I also understand why he went to Dallas.
Right. What about, I guess, Chad, am I the only one who thinks that this could be a starting job in it for Dalton?
Of course. There is a starting job in this for Dalton, potentially. I don't know that the Cowboys have, they've made every of their best offers, and Dak still continues to want more. Can they win with him is the question. Is that a route they want to take? Is there is this? I don't know. I don't know what their plan is. It feels like a smart move to keep him as a backup, but it also feels like to me he could be a starter.
Like I'm with you. I'm with Jay and Casey in the idea that this is a great move for the Cowboys. This was a no-brainer for the Cowboys. But the more I think about it, man, Dak, Dak got offered what, like $30-something million. He didn't take it. And there's a new coach. Mike McCarthy's got no allegiance to Dak Prescott. Who knows who would fit into a Mike McCarthy system better, Dak Prescott or Andy Dalton? I got to kind of think Andy Dalton would. Jay, you mentioned, he said he's top, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the last, 10 years or whatever. So, and we've always
and consider who he did that with, right? I mean,
yeah.
You have Ben Roethlisberger doing that with a Mike Tomlin. You have Tom Brady doing that with a Bill Belichick. And then you have Andy Dalton doing that with a Marvin Lewis.
Right.
So to be in that class statistically with a coach that failed time and again and brought in players who were in jail as often as they were on the field, I think that the kid is definitely a great pick.
Yeah, look, and that's the other thing. As you pointed out, these other guys had great coaches. Dalton hasn't, and he turned down apparently the Patriots or something. Apparently he had offers. He didn't specifically say the Patriots, but he made the decision to go to the Cowboys. And
well, he's a Texan,
right? But
let's not forget that.
To my understanding, the Pats actually didn't have interest, but Jacksonville was very vocal about it.
I'm sure Jacksonville was.
And so that's the interesting thing. Like, that's the tough call. That's really the question that Dalton came down to, and it makes sense. Like, Jacksonville has a long history of mismanaging things. I think his choices were start in Jacksonville or go over and like Minshew, he's going to beat out. There's no doubt about it. I don't know if he's going to beat out Dak. I don't know if he's going to be offered the job unless, Dak is franchised and then let go. So this is a bold move. I understand Casey's point here, why you would do it and why it's logical, but it's still a bold move to take a back seat, not take that money, and maybe never get a starting job again when there's one of those 32 jobs on the market and offered.
See, I go back to things you said, like last week, for instance. You point out, how are you going to go from Cincinnati to Jacksonville, one awful organization to another? And then,
right.
and then your love of the idea of, not paying like golf, not paying these guys who haven't really panned out. And I feel like getting Dalton for $3 million is like getting a Jared Goff, back then out of the draft or whatever. So all of a sudden you changed your salary structure by not having to pay now, don't get me wrong. Dalton goes out and wins. He's going to get Tannehill kind of money.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
What if he pulls a Jalen Hurts here? Right. What if we have an issue where Dak does get injured and you see Dalton thrust into the limelight, the spot that he's already shown he can handle and does well? Is he a Cowboy the next year? Is he commanding big dollars in off season as a free agent? Who knows those things? But that's not entirely unlikely that you could see him in a role where he's needed at some point in the season. And that's the smart thing. It happens almost annually for many teams. You see, you have a quarterback issue where you have to plug in. Look at the Saints. You've got to have somebody that is competent to be able to come in and pinch hit.
Right. No, if Dak goes down,
Dak's the starter. Dak's the starter. They want Dak to be the starter.
Right.
I feel that. It's right.
I don't know. I keep saying Super Bowl MVP Andy Dalton. All right. So if Dak's not, if Dak is the starter, and I'm completely off on this. Casey, you were saying, chill out for a year or whatever, get your body healthy. But next year's going to be kind of a similar quarterback situation. We could see Jameis back on the market, depending what happens with the Saints. We could see, obviously, Cam. Who knows where Cam's going to end up? We could see, obviously, you're going to have Trevor Lawrence coming into the NFL, which is going to be a hot ticket. And then, we could see somebody like Aaron Rodgers move. So, Casey, where would you see Dalton going maybe next year?
I don't know. That's tough because you look at it and the market will be a little similar next year. But the biggest difference, I think, that may be in next offseason is that you have a lot of older quarterbacks that may possibly be moving out and maybe stepping away from the game. You look at Drew Brees and what happens if Tom Brady is gone? What happens if Phillip Rivers is gone? Among a few other guys. You have some of these older guys who are getting up there who may not have a spot next season or may have a team that are moving on from them in terms of a starting position. So it's tough, but you might actually be looking at more suitors for Andy Dalton next year. And who knows, maybe something does happen, and let's say the Patriots start off 0-3. Who's saying they're not making that move for Andy Dalton in week 3 or week 4 of the season, and they're not trading a fourth or fifth round pick for him?
That's a good point.
He could be on another team by even the middle of the season.
All right, I like that. I like that idea that who knows, there could be a quarterback need midway through the season. Jay, what do you think, man? I mean, how long does Dalton ride the pine if he's not going to be the starter in Dallas, and where might he end up?
Well, I'm going to go wrong on what Casey had to say. I completely agree with the idea that next year will be a better market. You've got Indianapolis, you've got the Raiders, you've got you've got the Chargers. You've got so many teams that have a guy right now and maybe a young guy, and they're not sure how either are going to work out. So next year I think is a bigger market, and there's nothing wrong with being paired as like an old vet with a young guy who a team wants to redshirt for a year. A team wants to get a guy just to stand there on the sideline and see the speed of the NFL. So next year I could see him going anywhere. I imagine if he took this deal, his hope is to stay. I mean, look, you're a backup quarterback with the Cowboys, and you have a starting quarterback who everybody likes, but who isn't really that amazing statistically. You have a team that's known for its run game, basically, and that great offensive line. That's what's getting them close to the playoffs, and this year should get them over the hump and into the playoffs as a wild card. Why wouldn't you want to be there? There's a good chance Dak will walk away for more money, right? Or be franchised and then let go. So I think staying is good. I don't see him, however, being traded midseason. I think the Cowboys sit on him no matter what. They're hoping to make the playoffs this year and to make a deep playoff run. They saw what Tennessee did last year, and they're saying to themselves, we have the same sort of run team. We missed the playoffs in perhaps the weakest, or at least the most middling division in all of football, right? The NFC East, everybody's 9-7, 8-8, whatever the case might be. So, here's the place where we just need to get over the hump, and we can't afford to have our guy hurt and not have a backup. They're looking at the Saints, they're looking at the Titans, and they're figuring out how their football team could be constructed for a deep playoff run that's kind of injury-proof. And I think they've done a really good job. I make fun of Jerry Jones and the Cowboys all the time. This is a great signing. It reminds me of the Saints' recent backup quarterback signings that are really, really smart moves. It's a good place to invest an extra $4 or $5 million.
Yeah, no, I love the Dalton signing. I love it for both ends. I'm still convinced Dalton's going to get a start. I don't know. If nothing else, what happens when guys don't get the off-season training, the reps. They come into that first game or two, and somebody gets hurt usually. I'm not trying to wish any injury on Dak or anything, but I just feel like not having the current state of the world right now is not allowing for these OTAs and whatnot. So I'm curious how all these players' health and physicality is going to be going into it. Here's another question then, guys. If Dak and the Cowboys, if Dak starts all 16 games and the Cowboys miss the playoffs again this season, what would you see happening? I mean, haven't they given Dak every?
Is Dak really the problem? Dak's the number 2 quarterback in the NFL last year.
I mean, by numbers,
I mean, look at it. Have you really looked at the numbers?
No, he's got.
I mean, it's 30 touchdowns to 11 picks.
No, they're good numbers. I'm not knocking Dak's
I mean,
numbers.
it's not like he's. I don't know that. I mean, Jameis threw for more yards.
Chad, if I may ask you, I know we've had the argument about whether you would pay Dak or whether you would pay Zeke. Take Zeke off the table. Don't even worry about who else you're paying. Mm-hmm. Would you pay Dak the money he's asking for?
No.
And see, that's why I think if something doesn't happen this year, I think you got to move on.
I mean, do they franchise tag him again?
And I think that's smart with the Dalton move. Yeah, but it's Dalton, not. Yeah. It's not. I guess what I'm saying is, if you take Winston off the board because he was a disaster in terms of decision making and turnovers,
right?
And you look at the numbers, Dak then is technically the number 1 quarterback in the NFL.
Here's my thing with Dak. All right, and I'm
by passing statistics in the league for last year. I mean, that's what his agent is banking on. Right. They're saying, look at his numbers.
But this is my feeling, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong because
I wouldn't pay him that.
I don't know. I don't know for sure. I didn't watch a ton of Cowboys games anymore, but I mean, I see some of them, and obviously they were like 9-7 last year. Dak for me doesn't have that killer instinct. I guess in the fourth quarter. If I need a ball in a quarterback's hands, Dak is not on my top 10 list of quarterbacks that I'm thinking of putting the ball in his hands. And that's just me. I could be wrong. You guys can tell me if Dak's had a ton. I don't know if we can look it up. If Dak's had a ton of fourth quarter
I don't know
comebacks or whatever, or fourth quarter seal the deal, last second winning drives. But I don't know. You guys tell me. Dak's just never struck me as a.
He's got a hold of that locker room. They
dagger.
like him. They respect him. And,
so did Mariota.
Well, I think that there's a pretty decent difference.
Mariota was a middling 9-7 quarterback. No, there's not a big difference. Mariota was 9-7 on a very good team. Tannehill came in and Tannehill's got a different edge. And I don't know, guys. Am I wrong?
Well, I think you're right about one, Matt. You're wrong about your own team, ironically. So Tannehill came in and they quit throwing the ball. They started just handing it off to their rock star running back, which they could have done with Mariota all along, right? So I think Tannehill is in the same camp for me as Kirk Cousins, as Alex Smith, and as Dak Prescott, guys who have been on good teams and had really good numbers. But I agree with you; they're not guys I'm going to trust when the rubber hits the road. When it comes down to the fourth quarter and I have 2 minutes left, like I don't want Tannehill or Dak or Smith or Cousins in that situation. I haven't seen them prove me wrong. And Cousins proved me wrong for one shining moment last playoffs, and that was it. So I'm with you. I think you see if Dak takes a deal that you like, and if not, you franchise him and then let him go. If it's a great season, you can franchise him twice. You can do the Alex Smith move with him. And there's a situation here where both the Cowboys and Dak Prescott are right. The Cowboys are right. He wants more than he's worth. And Dak Prescott is right. Someone else will pay him that. So both sides are right.
It's funny that I feel like Dak's killer instinct has come in the negotiating room and not on the football field. Like I said, I don't know. He's just – it's like when –
No, he can be slow with his reads too.
It's like when going back to Jared Goff again. I hate keep knocking on Jared Goff, but I feel the same way about him. That's why I wouldn't have paid Jared Goff the money. I don't see that guy.
Well, you know who was third statistically?
Was it Jared Goff?
Jared Goff.
Well, look, don't forget, statistics don't mean a lot.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I've agreed
behind.
with you guys. I don't necessarily say I would pay either of those guys. I wouldn't have. I think they overpaid Goff. I think that you would be overpaying Dak if that's what you paid him. So, how do you get more for the money? How do you spend that money in better directions and improve that defense, which ultimately at the end of the season was their problem? Their problem wasn't scoring. They had the weapons to score. They did fine putting up points. They didn't have the defense that you thought they were going to have. So if the money you're going to spend on a quarterback who we can all agree is good, not great, where else could you spend that and get better value? That's the question I'd be asking myself if I was Jerry, especially now having a guy like Andy in fold, who's a Texan native, went to TCU, has reason to want to overperform, and is in a contract where if he does perform, everything falls in front of him at his feet. So it to me, if I'm Jerry, I would be like,
I think it's prime for Dalton to take over.
I could go spend this.
Worst case scenario, Dalton's their coach in 10 years.
Yeah, and that's not unlikely, really.
Here's another off.
It's not. That's been their pattern with quarterbacks too. They're especially clipboard quarterbacks.
Here's another off the cuff question, maybe. But I mean, could Jerry also have this negotiating tactic? Could he argue to Dak that he should have to pay him this $35 million because Dak wouldn't have these chunky soup commercials if it wasn't for the fact he was the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys?
No.
If Dak Prescott was the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, he wouldn't be having.
No, you can't take that stance.
I mean, why not?
Not in negotiating performance and contract.
You don't say it the way you phrased it.
Right.
You certainly imply
it's
it.
a benefit.
Yeah, no, you can. Yes,
Okay.
but you can't come out and
Of course.
beat the guy over the head and say, hey,
No.
by the way, you don't have any of this if it weren't for me.
No,
You can't.
I'm not as blunt, but I'm saying the Dallas Cowboys bring a certain premium when it comes to getting advertisements and whatnot,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering, if Jerry can be like, hey, look, man, you want me to pay you $200, but you're getting $400 million from the chunky soup people you wouldn't be getting if you were playing over in Buffalo. If you were a Bill,
there's no argument.
what's
to that.
Josh Allen getting? I mean, what's maybe does he have like a muscle milk commercial or something?
Has a local auto dealer commercial.
Oh, I'm sure, right? Yeah. All right, I don't know.
Jerry's best argument isn't the chunky soup. It's actually that, if you want to argue with Dak why he should take a contract that is less than he thinks he should make, you can just point out the fact that, the other comparable quarterbacks with similar stats, their teams haven't invested in the offensive line the way that Dallas Cowboys have. Dak often leaves games with a completely clean jersey. A lot of the money that the Cowboys could pay him is going into making him looking good, making him stand upright, making him not be carted off the field, making it less likely Andy Dalton will get meaningful snaps until week 15 or 16 or whatever the case might be. So I think that's the part where Dak should probably check himself, is look at what your line is being paid compared to other lines and how that's helping you. Because that's really where Jones is right in this negotiation. It's not the Campbell soup. It's that you bought him the gang he needs to protect him. So he should be a little bit appreciative for that.
He does put his body in harm's way. He's a runner. He will take risks and take hits when he gets out of the pocket and is forced to do those kind of things. He's big enough.
Oh, no doubt. But still,
I agree.
I would take a pay cut for that line, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Look, if I'm Dak and if whoever, and I don't even know who his agency is, and doesn't matter, but he's getting bad information. He's getting bad information, because if you look also at the history of organizations that continue to win, that have a chance to win, some of the players that do get compensated on other fronts look at it and go, okay, I'm smart enough to make that compromise and make sure that all these guys that are helping us win and providing those opportunities, you have to be smart enough to do that. I don't know that he is. I don't know that his agency is giving him solid enough information, but there's strong reason to believe that Dak is going to get the franchise tag, sign it, and this could be it for him after this year.
It could be.
That's what I feel is really coming.
He'll get the big money from Jacksonville, right? And Dalton will get the Cowboys tag.
Like I said, I keep waiting for Dak to go to the Patriots. All right. Over under.
He fits there.
Over under half a game started for Andy Dalton this season. Jay, over under half a game started for Dalton this season.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I want to say over, but I do have the Eagles winning the division, so under actually makes more sense. Yeah, I think I would pass on this one.
Okay.
Because injury is so common. It's hard to make it that many seasons without getting injured. I would not be surprised if Dak were down for at least a game.
Or maybe the Cowboys are.
Yeah, he hasn't missed a game.
No, he hasn't. That's why this offseason is kind of worrying me. Or the Cowboys could be 14-1 and Dalton starts week 16 when it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that's the only, if you look at history, while it's likely a quarterback gets injured, what are the odds of the Cowboys having a game they can afford to lose at the end? Slim. And then Dak almost never gets hurt. So Dalton could spend the entire season with a clipboard.
All right, Casey, what do you think, man? Over under half a game that Dalton starts this season?
I'll say Dalton starts one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say he starts one, whether it be at the end of the season when they don't really need the game, which is doubtful, like Jay said. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard to make it so many years consecutively without missing a single game. I have a bad feeling that maybe this might be the year, and it might not be a serious one. Maybe he tweaks his ankle or something, and they decide to protect the asset and sit him out in a week whatever game against the lowly Giants or something. Who knows? So I think Dalton gets one. I think that's it.
All right. What do you think, Chad?
Definitely over.
Definitely over?
I don't know why. I just feel like this is a kind of one of those Jera world ripe for soap opera type thing. If it has any kind of negative impact on Dak, if he doesn't perform well, for any reason, I think, he'll be pressured into taking the Texan, red rifle shot.
I'm telling you, I feel like the universe spoke to me last Saturday and said, Dalton to the Cowboys. And I don't know, I keep saying in my head, Super Bowl MVP, Andy Dalton, and I don't know why.
Well, if you can get some early odds on that, you might as well go ahead and lay down. If you're having premonitions on that level, yeah, get in.
All right.